in continuation with the study of female reproductive system. In this video today, we'll be talking about the fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes form the secondary sex organs. We'll be discussing one by one. Now, the fallopian tubes are also called as oviducts, and these oviducts are present on either side. Over here you can see the structure which is known as, this is tubular structure, and these are muscular in nature and around 10 to 12 centimeters long. So this tubular structure that extends from the uterus to the ovary part is known as the fallopian tube or the oviduct. So it extends from the periphery of each ovary right up to the uterus, and it is located above and behind the urinary bladder. Now this structure, which is the fallopian tube, there are two fallopian tubes which are present on either side, and it is divided into three regions very distinctly. And the first region, which is towards the ovary side, is known as infundibulum. Infundibulum is the part which is closer to the ovary, and as you can see over here, the structure is funnel shaped. It is extending broadly like this. So the structure of the infundibulum is funnel shaped, and it has several finger-like projections, as you can clearly see in the diagram over here and as well over here. These are finger-like structures which are known as fimbriae. So here the part which is opening up as a funnel is infundibulum, and the fimbriae are the finger-like projections which are present towards the ovary side. Now the fimbriae is actually finger-like, and it helps in collecting the ovum after the ovulation. So once the ova is released, it is taken up by the fimbriae that are finger-like projections and is taken to the funnel-shaped structure that is infundibulum. So from here, when ova are released, it is taken up by this. Now, the second part, which is the part behind or next to the infundibulum, is ampulla. Ampulla is slightly wider area. The infundibulum will lead to ampulla, and the ampulla is wide over here. The process of syngamy or the fertilization actually takes place in the ampulla region. When we talk about the syngamy, that is the movement of the sperm towards the ova and their fusion subsequently, that happens to take place in ampulla. The ampulla leads to isthmus. This is the last part of the fallopian tube, and it is towards the uterus. So this part is very narrow and it leads to the uterus over here. So when we see, the fallopian tube can be broadly classified into three major parts. First is infundibulum, which is closer to the ovary side, and the fimbriae are the extension finger-like projections which help in catching or taking the ova after the ovulation from the ovary, and this ova then passes through the ampulla region and through the isthmus, and over here the ampulla is the site where the actual fertilization or the syngamy or the fusion of the male sperm and the female ova takes place. Now, when we talk of the walls of the fallopian tube is having three-layered wall. The outer layer is known as the mucosa, and it is the innermost layer. The first layer, which is we are talking from inside out. So the innermost layer is the mucosa layer, and it is made up of simple columnar epithelial cells. Now these simple columnar epithelial cells are further classified into two, that is the secretory type and the ciliated type. The secreted columnar epithelial cell secretes certain viscous liquid which is required for nourishing the ovum. So as the ova, which is being released by the ovary, travels through the fallopian tube, it is nourished by the secretory cells from the epithelial or the mucosa lining inside. Also, as I said, the ova needs to move through the fimbriae, infundibulum and ampulla. It needs to move, and as it is moving, it is pushed. So the ciliated columnar epithelial cells will be somewhat like this. So when these cells are present inside, they will help by their systematic movement, the ciliary movement, they will be pushing the ova smoothly, as well as it is continuously being nourished by the secretions from the secretory cells. So mucosa, which is the innermost lining, helps in secreting the liquid that nourishes the ova. Also, it facilitates the movement of the ova or zygote, if formed after fertilization, to pass through the fallopian tube and reach the uterus. Whether or not fertilization has taken place. If the fertilization has taken place, then the zygote which is formed as a result will move towards the uterus, where it will be settling for implantation. And if the fertilization does not happen, then ova travels over here, which is then degenerated later on in the form of menstrual cycle. The second layer, which is the middle layer, is the muscularis layer, which forms the middle layer. It is made up of muscles, as we said. And the last layer is serosa. And it is the outermost layer which lines the fallopian tube. So fallopian tube is only a part where the movement of the ova is facilitated, and also ambient conditions are there so as to receive the sperm and to facilitate fertilization.